Hey everyone, 80s20. It has been a bit. Well, not really. I've been kind of posting not regularly, but not super on off. Anyway, so recently I have actually gotten back into writing, which is why I'm making this video. But the thing is, I was watching my old reading reviews just to see what was the last thing I covered. Because I know that I'm like, well, there was I think 1 or 2 reviews that I hadn't talked about yet for reasons. And in my latest video, I don't know if it was always like this, but I'm talking about, I think, chapter 17, I finished reading the review, and I'm giving my thoughts on it, clarifying some things, and then the video just goes silent. And so for the entirety of me talking about the chapter 18 review, there's no audio. I don't know how I never noticed that, so I'm just gonna redo the chapter 18 review. And also the 19, which I never did. Reason for that is I was doing the reviews in 6 chapter chunks. 1 to 6, 7 to 12, 13 to 18. And the next one would be 19 to 24? Yeah. But the main reviewer, I guess he's probably busy. The person who left all the previous reviews I've read, because no one else is reviewing the story. Even though, I guess, by the stats, there are other people reading it, which is fine. But he hasn't, so I didn't have anything to talk about for a while. I didn't want to do a video on one review. But it's been so long, and I'm actually up to chapter 26 now, that I'm like, well, I can't have it just sitting there, so I'll knock it out now. So I'll do 18 and 19 now. I am looking over the 17 review right now, which you can see right here. What was this one about? I feel like I should probably do this review again too, but I don't really see the point. So let me just do it really quickly. Okay, there's a bit about cruise fishing and Animal Crossing. Alright, just gonna look through it super quick again just to make sure. Toxic positivity. I remember that someone in this chapter, oh yeah, the doctor, when they're talking to him, he says that Janix will be fine, but they take it kind of wrong, you know, because yeah. I guess Hope makes her appearance in this chapter as a doctor helping with Janix's physical therapy. Right, and then HB is trying out the Skell and is flying like crazy. And Hope in the same room, potty banter. Yeah, potty banter's always great. There was not enough of it in X, oddly enough. Or at least, I don't think it was done in a way that was actually good. It's like character A says something, then character B says something, and I think that's the entire conversation. You don't get like a response from A, whereas in Xeno 1 and Xeno 2 you do. I could be remembering it wrong. Yeah, that's true. The clue, yeah, well, I'm hitting up on that more, I think. I want to use it more, that's why I established it so early. The clue culture. Right, because they use Fry to get them all instead. The Phantom, right, I had to keep that going. Chris would be a good curator. The Faithless. Oh, and yeah, there was that bit. I remember I spent a lot of time talking about why Harper's plan made sense, or why it is that he went after Ethos and the other people who were holed up that Fry was keeping a track of. Why he went to kill them in order to ensure, I guess, that Janix's career was over, even though I guess the whole point is that he's gonna kill her anyway. I guess it was kind of a failsafe if he couldn't kill her, because then he would still have her out of the way and she wouldn't be able to cause the deaths of the rest of the Reapers, which he believes that is what she will do. I went on about it for like 20 minutes, I feel, when I was trying to justify it, but in the end I think the point of it is really more that it's unjustifiable, and that it's just another part of showing that Steven is like a little too obsessed and that he's making mistakes / not making sense. Like, he has the goal he wants to reach and he's just not getting there efficiently because he's kind of nuts, I guess. Not like crazy, but he's just obsessed with getting Janix out of the way, that he doesn't really think things through. That's how I defined it after 20 minutes of going around in circles. So that's how I'm going to end that tangent, because it was the longest time that I spent on this review. Yeah, it was also to reveal the Phantom is still in this story in a different form, but also the same form, being the cloak. And yeah, the fight between Janix and Harper on foot was good. Solomon coming in to save the day. Oh, did I spare the blood lobster? I think I talked about this before, not in any of these reading reviews, but maybe in a different video. I did. No, I didn't, I think. The first time that I played Xenoblade X, I killed, what was his name? I forget. The blood lobster. Reason being, it was a very dumb reason. It's that the quest annoyed me. I hated it, collecting the lobsters. Because it's the kind of thing where when you do it on your own for however long you do it, and you pick up how many ever you pick up. Well, let's say, I think, because there are only like 45 available at first or something like that. A number. I picked up like, let's say 20 something. So when I needed to find where the rest of them were, I had to use a guide. And because I didn't know where the ones I did pick up were, I still had to go to every individual spot of the first like 49, which took forever. And then there was hitting up the next 49, which took forever to get all 99 of them. And that just really annoyed me. So when I finally got to the end of the quest, and then the fight with him wasn't easy either. So when I was finally able to beat him, I'm just like, I hate you so much, so I killed him. I mean, the way the game presents it, letting him live is a better punishment, but I didn't really care. I hated him, so I was just like, I just want you dead, so I killed him. Alright, and then the rest is about what happens next. So we're going to move on to the actual first review that I'm going to read. We didn't spend long on that at all. 8 minutes, that's good. Alright, so this is chapter 18, which I already read and did a whole talking thing off, but we missed it. So 18 actually. Which one was 18? Oh, fucking shit. I don't even know which chapter 18 was. I need to familiarize myself so I know what I'm talking about. Okay, now we can actually start the review. I remember that chapter a bit better now. I should probably have reread the whole thing, but it's too late now. Okay. I hope that one person being made happy is you, sir, because your happiness is far more important than ours. Not that I'm questioning whether you're enjoying writing this or not, but if you're not happy doing this, then what even is the point? Yeah, I do remember, it's kind of ironic that I'm reading this now, because I did go on like 2 months of not writing the story, and I just got back to it. Not because I wasn't happy, but just because I writer's block, and I decided to just take a step back and re-examine, and then I can read, and then I can write again, and it feels great. So that's good. And yeah, I hope everyone is enjoying it. Friggin' Irina's second affinity mission flashbacks for that whole talk of Mims not aging. Man, that was a dumb mission, but at least Irina got out of her suicidal slump because of that. I vividly remember being pissed off by that mission. The Irina's second affinity mission. I still think it's probably the worst mission, one of the worst missions in the worst missions Xenoblade X. I can't think of a worse one that actually pissed me off. And once again, I'll just say, because I've talked about this a lot, and not just in the version we lost the audio for, but the Irina's second affinity mission has nothing to do with her, and that's my biggest issue with it. Oops, I just muted the mic, and that might explain why my audio died. I never thought about it before, but imagine the havoc the Phantom Cloak could cause on Mira against certain tyrants and ganglia strongholds. It alone is not invincible, obviously, unless it can somehow avoid a Fill-Event suction attack. Doubt it. But if it were a craftable in-game item with augment slots, you can bet the Phantom Cloak would be the post-game ground gear everyone would be working towards. I imagine so. It's a very... what's the word? Because obviously, like, it did defend against it. Then again, when Harper was wearing it, he was fighting a Skell, so of course, a Skell operating at like half power, but it was still beating the crap out of him. Yeah, it not bulletproof, not edge proof, but very resistant to both things. So like swords can't completely cut through it, firepower can't completely break through it, but the person underneath can still feel it. So it's like, if you hit it hard enough, you may not damage it, but you can damage the person wearing it. So it's not exactly invincible, but it definitely would be something that people would definitely want to get their hands on. Observer characters have always fascinated me, especially those that do nothing but observe. Like, anyone can learn so much just by watching life go by, things interacting. As someone who in his college days would sometimes go downtown, or even places like Disneyland, to watch people do their thing, amongst having other things I wanted to do, there is an appeal to just existing and watching. But what's the point of making those observations and accumulating all that knowledge if you're not going to put the knowledge to use, even if it's simply to share it with others who don't have that knowledge? Even observer characters like the Supreme Kai in DBZ took action when they needed to, when simply watching wasn't enough. A lot of bad things have happened, still happen, because those with power and the knowledge to curb that do nothing but watch on. But at least the watchers can watch on contently, knowing that what they learn from doomed and failed societies will help their own people. Yeah, that was an interesting thing that I mean, you summed it up there. But the watchers, Elma's people, I don't want to go too much into it because I will go into it more later in the story, but it's clearly that something happened. You know, there was the visit that they talk about, and there was some other event that happened, which changes things, and that's where Elma has this disconnect with her grandfather and how their people do things. Specifically in this case anyway, is that they see no reason to go save the Earth and humankind from being wiped out. They're like, well, we don't, why should we care? It doesn't affect us. But to Elma, it doesn't make any sense, as she argues for that. Why do these super powerful alien forces want to wipe out humanity? It doesn't make any sense. I'm sure some of his fishing with Constantine is subconsciously a part of the connecting dots Cruz is making in his head. Fishing's not unlike fighting in that it's a game of attack and counterattack, of endurance and making quick judgment calls based on how you read the situation. Can't be too aggressive all the time, or else you'll wear yourself out and your prey gets away, but you also can't just let them have their way, else there's no point in hooking them in the first place. Even the timing of reeling in the catch the moment they first bite is important. Could it be that Constantine was preparing Cruz for his next step in life, even if it was unintentional? Also, talk about impeccable timing for Cruz to decide he wants to fight, but at this point it's really looking for more like sink or swim. Yes, it was convenient timing, admittedly, the way it worked out, but it was also something I realized I should have gotten around to sooner. Something I think I didn't do as well in this story, and honestly it's kind of because of the Skulls and Love universe that existed before, is that there's some character relationships that I didn't spend as much time on as I wanted to, because I was spending so much time on other relationships. So for like most of part 1, it's really revolving around Janix and Elma with each other, and then Janix and Elma with the Reapers, you know, those guys. And the main reason for that was because that when Starfall happens, I want it to be more meaningful, I guess, than it was back in Skulls and Love, even though I don't think it was entirely meaningless back then. Of course, in focusing on those bonds, I kind of forgot about the bond. I didn't put enough time into the ones that were already established in the previous universe. So like in my head, I see Janix and Cruz have a fantastic relationship, but that's because I still think about how I developed their relationship in the Skulls and Love line of stories. In this one, I still think they definitely do come off as friends and they like each other, but I didn't spend enough time with that, I feel. Especially now with chapter 26. But that's why I did it now, where I was like, oh shit, I should probably have Chris learn to fight from the Reaper, specifically from Janix, and I literally waited to the last possible second to do it, because I feel like inserting a scene about that earlier is not good, not a good practice or habit to fall in, which unfortunately I've been falling in lately, but I'll get more on that when we're done. I was waiting until I saw this change, or at least didn't see it in this chapter, but I find it interesting that Elma approached Chris first with this new development, and not the big three, as I call Chisonagi and Vandam. That's in regards to learning that the Ganglion are coming, and Elma told Chris first. I guess it's because it's her communicator and her dark matter research, but it is telling of the strength of their trust and faith in each other, at least Elma's towards Chris. Also, it's probably easier to explain all this to Chris than the big three, who still probably have to figure out a way to explain the imminent Ganglion attack and the involvement of a friendly Xeno. No doubt her own team and Janix are going to want answers, especially Ladder, since she did pick up the transmission during one of their patrols. But I guess we'll see if Elma defies Nagi's orders with them too. Then again, IRC, his orders were not to tell Janix specifically, so I guess Elma technically hasn't broken them. Oh great, not only do they have Gowers, but they're mass-producing almond dolls too. Yeah, I mean, as far as the game's concerned, there only existed 2 almond dolls, which was Goetisha's, which I actually decided to give a name to. I think I named it Misery, and Nardakion, which belongs to Nahum, and those are the only 2 almond dolls in the entire game. But so I was like, well, they're super cool looking, and they're obviously big ganglion hitters, so I would use them for their advanced force. And Gowers are already established as existing, even though they were never deployed on Mira, except for Rock, but that's mostly because he just happened to find his way there. It's not like he came there on purpose. And yeah, I really should have read the chapter again, because I wanted to talk about why it is that Elma goes to Chris first, if there was any specific reason, but I definitely think it's just more convenient to go to her first, because Chris kind of figured out some things that were going on, and that not everything was as people said it was, and it's kind of handy. I think Elma wanted to repair her relationship with Chris, and also she knows that having someone smart like Chris on the ball with this would definitely help when it comes time to fight. So yeah, there's that. I'm pretty sure I can put it better if I actually read the chapter again. I'm guessing there was nothing said about when they can expect the Ganglion to arrive from Aeon. Sure, why not make tensions even higher and fill people with even more dread, or at least make for a good read. What a brilliant parallel. Just as things are winding down, relatively speaking, with the pre-Exodus story, suddenly the slice of life days of the post-Exodus half just suddenly vanish and are ramping up exponentially, as are the stakes. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how the eventual battle will differ from both the in-game story and my previous continuity, especially now that they know that not only is the enemy coming and they prepare accordingly, but that there's a ray of hope that will arrive if they can manage to hold out, but also the days, weeks, however long it takes leading up to this, and how the rest of the active crew is handling the tension. Honestly, having Aeon not specify how far out they were in his first call was an oversight, actually. And while I was writing the next chapter, I was trying to think, is there a way that he can kind of get around that? Is there a way he can phrase why he didn't give them a time frame in his first call? And I couldn't come up with one that was believable, so I just ignored that he didn't give them a time frame in his first call, and he gives them a time frame in their second call. That's it. That was... Because, like, the thing is, and I guess I've hit on it now, there have been a few instances where reading a review kind of reveals something that I definitely should have talked about. But it's too late because the chapter was posted. And so I just try to find a way to make it narratively work with the next chapter. And sometimes it's really inconvenient. And that has become incredibly apparent with the most recent chapters that I've been writing. Obviously haven't been read yet by the specific person, but for people who are up to date, I have a habit now of going back into previous chapters that have been fully published and adding in scenes. Because like I think of new things that are much better if they're included. So what chapter was it? It was 21 that I actually went back to, I think a few weeks ago, and edited like the last 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 words, I think. It's like the very end of the chapter. There were like a bunch of quick scenes in it that I fleshed each of them out more. And then most recently, chapters 25 and 24, I think I also went in and added an additional scene to. After they were posted for like 2 weeks. And that's just because I kind of need those things that I accidentally forgot about. It's my fault for forgetting, and I'm going to try not to in the future. Because I don't like doing it for one reason. Or editing a chapter on fanfiction is a pain in the butt. Even if it's only adding 500 words to the end of a chapter, I don't like doing it because of how fanfiction handles it. Anyway, that's chapter 18. Didn't take too long, so just gonna move on to 19. Get this over with. Alright, 19's not that long too, so yay. And there she is, the figure whose name got tied to another planet and have only heard of in Sideworks. She's a lot more Kantian than I thought, but it works with the role she has to play and the fact that morality at this point needs to be set on the back burner in order to ensure that those more moral and righteous leaders live on to do their parts in their place. So, not gonna lie, there are a few times where I read this guy's reviews and I think he's making words up. So, I was like, Kantian. Like, I thought that he had misspelled something else, and I was like, I don't know what that is. So I looked it up. I typed it in Google, and it says here, Kantian. Kantian ethics are deontological, revolving entirely around duty rather than emotions or end goals. All actions are performed in accordance with some underlying maxim or principle, which are vastly different from each other. It is according to this that the moral worth of any action is judged. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how I interpreted Mira Torres, or how I wrote her. Which Mira Torres gets, I think, 3 scenes in this chapter, just 3, which I think are all the scenes she's gonna get, unless I do a flashback with her in the future, I don't know. And I loved all 3 of them. I loved writing for her, and how I believed her character would be in some regards. It's just the kind of character that I kind of wanted to use, and Mira was the one for the role. Of course, this also sets in another thing that I kind of screwed up on, whereas I should have established Mira before this chapter, because in the way that I see how the coalition is run, she's one of the heads. You know, she's like, Reeve is at the top, the president, and then he has, like, let's say a dozen people right under him who manage everything else. She's one of those dozen. Ethos was another one, as were the other traders. So she's pretty high ranking, and she definitely should have been mentioned earlier in the story, but I didn't. I was like, is this even going to be a shock reveal? I don't know what the reason I didn't do it for. But I kind of realized, I think at some point, that it's like, well, throwing her in anywhere else feels random, so I might as well throw her in when she has something of value to say and do. And with President Reeve gone, and most of the other ruling party dead or in prison, she needs something to do. This was the perfect opportunity to use her, so I used her. Oh wait, did I switch to the review? I did not. Vogel is Janix's sword. It was made for her, or rather named for her. Symbolism at play here is very on point, because while the name translates to Firebird, it can also refer to a phoenix. And given the multiple times Janix has risen from the ashes and come out all stronger for it, it's only right that the blade becomes her own. Not much difference now between Pyra's Aegis sword and Vogel, apart from the appearance and weight, is there. So, yeah, I mean, I actually didn't have, what's the word? Pyra's Aegis sword, in my head when I was coming up with how to portray what Janix's sword looked like. I simply thought that Janix's sword was like a, what's the word? Like a samurai sword, like a long sword. but the blade is red as opposed to being steel, iron colored. Like, let's just assume that it's still made out of steel or some sort of mineral or whatever it is that swords are made of, but it's just red. And then I played Metal Gear Rising recently, and Jetstream Sam's sword is exactly how I imagine Fuervogel would look. So his high frequency Muramasa, I believe. That is exactly how Fuervogel looks in my head, with the exception being that this one can light on fire. So, yeah. Which I did watch a Rising Let's Play a long time ago, but I completely forgot about it. And then I was playing it recently, and I got to that part, I'm like, you know what that reminds me of? And I think that maybe subconsciously, because the red-colored blade might have been. I mean, I doubt Jetstream Sam was the first to have a red-colored blade, but he's definitely the one that probably ingrained itself in my memory. And it's cool. Sam's cool, so that's why the sword looks like that. And yeah, it definitely acts like Pyra's blade, since it can catch fire and do cool stuff. Of course, I think the way that I described it is that after she hits the button, she swings and that ignites it. So now she hits the button and it ignites, even though future me is like, you idiot, you shouldn't have specified that. Talk about a dangerous ability. No wonder it's considered taboo to use it in that way. I wonder what she saw, though, and how much of it is set in stone, and ultimately how much of the tragedies from the previous continuity will still hold true in this one. But what interests me more is the last image she had before the gunshot. If that's supposed to be Mira, I'm not sure what part it's supposed to be. IIRC Primordia doesn't have any trees, and I wouldn't exactly call the wildlife in Noctilum peaceful. I was talking about Elma's little trip when she touched Janix and used her powers to see into the future. There was actually a lot more that I had originally envisioned for Elma to see when she did that. And then I forgot, because I do. So I reincorporated that for later. But I'm not going to talk about it. So let's move on. I'm a little surprised that Janix didn't try to grill HB on what it is about Flame that he sees in her. It's kind of downplayed in this fic, but I personally would be curious to hear Mr. Peter give someone else high praise for once. You know, yeah, once again, that's something that I definitely would consider going back and adding text for. Having Janix and HB talk a bit more about Flame. Because the way it is like that Janix knew that HB was interested in Flame, and he also knew that Flame was interested in HB. And so the way she sees it, she and HB and Flame and Alexa have been friends for a long time. So it's not like it's a jarring thing, or she's like, oh, what do you mean you're interested in her? It's more like, well, duh. So I didn't see any reason to go too much more into it. But I, like, you know, if I could, I would go back and add another paragraph in there, hitting that kind of stuff up. Not to say that it probably won't happen. So, and by that I mean it's not that I won't go back, because I'm not going to do that. Maybe in the future I'll return to this scenario to flush it out. It's a possibility. The bad dog tried to hurt his best friend's family. Only right that he gets put down by said best friend and not by some growth or something from beyond the grave. Still definitely not how Harper expected to go out. And it looks like he couldn't even get a whimper out, let alone a bang. And like that, Eleonora has a last name. I don't think that takes away the air of mystery around her or her behind the scenes work or anything, but it's something I really much thought about. Her not having a last name previously, at least as far as I know. Yeah, Eleonora did not have it. A lot of the characters don't have last names. And I kind of don't want to give them last names, but for like the supporting cast I do, which you'll see coming up. There's some characters that I use from the actual game, like some NPCs, some Blade people, that I just decide to give them last names just to make it easier for me at least to talk about, to reference them. I mean, it makes them feel more like characters when they have full names. I don't know, it's a weird thing. Yeah, tying in Eleonora to the presidential family there's a reason for it, and I have something that I'm planning with her, which Yeah, I think I'll stop. I don't want to slip up and say anything, but I do have stuff that I have planned for Eleanor. I just don't know when I'll get around to it because of how the rest of the story goes. Oh, and yeah, I probably shouldn't forget to mention him. Stephen Harper's death. I don't remember if I talked about this in the video that didn't get muted, but Stephen Harper, I had imagined his fight with Janix ending like so many different ways. Half of them he died, half of them he survived, and half of them... There was actually a really interesting way that I had to end the fight with Stephen Harper at one point. I'll go into this because I know I didn't talk about this before. It was something that I imagined when I was imagining how I wanted... Because I decided that Stephen Harper would break bad like 10 minutes after I created him for the role that he would serve. I thought that would work really well. But for Stephen Harper, I wanted him to have a bigger impact on Janix's life, and while he still has one of the things that I had imagined, which I couldn't bring myself to do, was that I was going to have Stephen Harper be the reason Janix gets put in the MIM. In their fight that they have, it wasn't even supposed to be a fight. I had planned out some sort of mission that would end with the Reapers getting split up and leaving Janix to work with Steven. And Lila to go find them. And Steven would betray Janix just seemingly out of the blue, like she didn't see this coming. He would fight her, and he would mortally wound her. To the point where it's like she dies for like 5 seconds before they're able to get her in a MIM. And then because she's technically dead, her human body is dead, there's nothing that can be done. She's now in her MIM, and that's how it is. So originally it wasn't going to be a choice that she decided to go into it. The choice is going to be taken from her by Steven, which would then connect to his death, which once again, I swapped around a lot between Janix, Lila, and Hideo being the ones who killed Steven in that scenario. And then in the actual scenario we got, which ended with Firebird, the Skell versus human fight, I was also confused, or not confused, but I still was deciding about if I wanted Steven to die at the end of that fight or not, and who I wanted to kill him. And in the end I decided not to kill him, because I felt like that went against everything that Janix learned from that fight in this version, where it's like, you're better than him, don't kill him. Which there was a version of it where she decides not to kill him. He goes for like a sneak shot on her while her back is turned, and then she turns around and then she kills him. And while that's justified in the fact that he went for the move, it also feels like it completely destroys the whole thing where she's like, oh yeah, I'm better than you, so I'm not going to kill you, only kill him 5 seconds later because of something else. So it changed a lot until it got to this point, which I honestly think is, out of all of them, probably the best. I could be wrong, but mainly it's just, I guess it's because I wrote it, so of course I would think that the final version is the best version. I'll leave it up to you to decide, but yeah, so that's why Hideo Kamiya shoots him dead. So the past has caught up to the present. Frankly, I didn't know what else to say apart from a few comments I did make. A lot of time I spent reading this was just me soaking everything in with the occasional "oh" of varying tones. There was definitely a lot of curveballs, some which I expected, others I couldn't have seen coming. There's still the fate of Flame and presumably HB and Alexa that we don't know about, in addition to how Flame and her team wound up aboard a different arc from the White Whale, presumably with the coups, and what that will mean for the White Whale crew without them. And of course there's that ominous vision Elma had when she essentially mind-melded with Janix and peeked into her possible future. Meanwhile, Eleanor is baking her secret lie in the background and doing Eleanor things. But all that can be answered later. For now, there's the endurance round to worry about. Ah yes, the endurance round. When I tell you how hard it was to write chapters 20 and 21, I don't think I can accurately describe it in words. It was originally just going to be chapter 20. Chapter 20 was going to be called Starfall, and it was going to cover everything that happens leading up to the beginning of Xenoblade Chronicles X. But I didn't like the idea of it too much. Like, the chapter just became too long. And so I decided to split up both of the aspects into two. So that's why chapter 21 is now Starfall, not chapter 20. But I think it worked out better in the long run. Yeah, I was surprised, honestly. I remember when I first got this review, I was surprised that it was shorter and that there was some things that you didn't touch on. But at the same time, I've made that comment before, and it kind of spurred you on to touch on more things. And it's like, well, it's not like you're not mentioning it because it's not good or interesting or this or that. It's just that you're not mentioning it because maybe there's nothing more to mention, which is fine. So I'm cool with it. But yeah, I did throw in some curveballs at the end of this chapter, which is the last chapter of the flashback storyline. Because it ends with a really short summary of chapter 2, I think. Yeah, chapter 19 ends with a really short summary of chapter 2, detailing the battle to escape from Earth and everything. And then it time skips. How much does it time skip? It time skips a few days, then a few months, and then 2 years. And the last skip brings us right to the previous chapter. So now it's in the same time frame as chapter 18, and then chapter 20 and 21 continue from there. So yeah, I did it. Got these 2 reviews out of the way with a little quick detour back into chapter 17. And of course that brings us to the future, which is chapter 20, 21, all the way to 26. I'm currently writing 27 and 28. So yes, I'm glad to be writing again, and I hope I can keep this momentum going for a lot longer. So I hope everyone's enjoying the story. This is a lot more chill than I thought it would be. But yeah, maybe I'll do another update video another day where I can just talk on everything I've been up to in the 2 months since I stopped writing this darn story. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and thanks for reading, of course, and reviewing and all that. And I'll see you next time. Basta.